Hello, and welcome back to Architecture Topics. I'm your host, Liam Karen, and today we're heading to the foggy shores of San Francisco to explore a building that blurs the line between architecture and the living world. The California Academy of Sciences by Renzo Piano. But before we dive in, yes, I know I say this every time, but it really does help. If you enjoy these stories, hit follow, leave a review, or share the episode with a friend. You're basically the entire Architecture Topics marketing department. And honestly, you're doing great. So let's keep it up. Amazing. Let's get started. To understand the Academy's building we see today, we first need to understand how the institution came to be and the struggles it went through. The California Academy of Sciences was founded back in 1853. Just 3 years after California became a state. It started as a small group of scientists passionate about understanding the natural world of the West Coast, documenting everything from birds to fossils to the geology of the Sierra Nevada. And ironically, its history has been shaped by natural events, particularly earthquakes. First, in 1906, the famous earthquake that set the city on fire destroyed the building where the Academy was based. Luckily, Alice Eastwood, a botanist and member of the Academy, saved key specimens in a heroic act. This allowed the Academy to endure and rebuild its infrastructure, this time at Golden Gate Park. There, the Academy expanded over decades into a beloved museum with aquariums, planetariums, and halls of wonders. But by the late 20th century, though, the structures were aging, and then came 1989. The Loma Prieta earthquake tore through the Bay Area, toppling highways, fracturing buildings, and shaking the city to its core. The Academy's complex was badly damaged. Walls cracked, exhibits shattered, and entire wings became unsafe to enter. In that moment, the institution faced a choice. They could patch it up, rebuild what they had, or start over. They chose the harder path to reimagine the Academy entirely, to create a new kind of museum, one that didn't just display nature, but embodied it. A museum that could teach not only through exhibits, but through the very way it breathed, moved, and interacted with its environment. To bring that vision to life, the Academy searched for an architect who truly understood nature, not as decoration, but as structure. And that search led them to Renzo Piano. By then, Piano had already designed museums that felt alive, buildings that responded to light and air rather than resisting them. His Manil collection in Houston had quietly redefined what a museum could be. Simple, luminous, and deeply human. For the Academy, he seemed like the perfect fit. Someone who could merge science and architecture with precision and poetry. When Piano visited San Francisco, he was struck by the city's hills, its fog, and its sense of movement. He started imagining what the new museum could look like. The idea that guided everything was simple, but radical. What if the building wasn't placed in the park, but rather part of it? Piano imagined the museum as a slice of landscape, gently lifted from the ground to reveal the wonders beneath it, a piece of nature floating over nature. From above, the roof itself becomes a living ecosystem. 2.5 acres of undulating hills, covered with more than 1 million native plants. Each of the 7 mounds aligns with the underlying program. The 2 largest hills cover the planetarium and the rainforest dome, making their presence known externally while hiding the massive internal volume required for those exhibits. It's a structure where the landscape literally mirrors the function. The roof also captures rainwater, insulates the building, and cools it naturally. Dozens of motorized skylights open and close like gills to regulate temperature and airflow, all managed by a hyper-efficient computer system that tracks San Francisco's microclimates. It's a roof that breathes. Below it, the museum brings together all of the Academy's worlds under one structure. The aquarium, the planetarium, the rainforest dome, and the Natural History Museum. 4 distinct environments, all contained under a single living skin, symbolizing how interconnected life truly is. Light pours through glass walls filtered by canopies and skylights, connecting visitors to the surrounding park. Concrete gives way to recycled steel and glass. The materials feel light, almost transparent, as if the building itself is trying to disappear back into the landscape. But as elegant as it looks, this was no simple project. The living roof alone posed enormous challenges. Its weight, drainage, waterproofing, and maintenance all had to be solved from scratch. Piano's team worked closely with engineers from Arup and horticultural experts from the Academy to make the system viable, balancing beauty, ecology, and performance in every detail. The result was not a building about sustainability, but sustainability made into a building. Turning that vision into reality would take nearly a decade. Construction began in the early 2000s, right in the heart of Golden Gate Park. It was a delicate operation. They were building a museum that was also an ecosystem in one of the most environmentally sensitive places in the city. Every decision, from materials to methods, was guided by sustainability. The steel came from recycled sources. Concrete was mixed with fly ash to reduce its carbon footprint. Even the insulation was made from old blue jeans. Above all, Piano wanted the building to breathe on its own, without relying heavily on mechanical systems. Natural ventilation shafts pull in cool air from the park. Skylights open automatically to release warm air, and sunlight was filtered through the glass canopy, reducing the need for artificial lighting. And let's not forget the engineering challenge behind all this. The roof, that living, rolling landscape, weighed thousands of tons. The engineers from Arup designed a steel structure strong enough to carry the weight, yet light enough not to interfere with the building's delicate sense of openness. From above, one of the domes looks different, as if it was covered in dots. That's the rainforest dome, and the dots are skylights, which also double as portholes, letting sunlight into the rainforest dome while maintaining the delicate balance of temperature and humidity inside. Piece by piece, the building took shape, not just as a museum, but as an experiment in ecological architecture. And of course, this time around, seismic systems were integrated into the design from the start. In a city defined by its earthquakes, the next time around, the Academy will be ready. By the time it was finished in 2008, it had earned the LEED Platinum certification, the highest possible rating for sustainable design. At that time, it was the greenest museum in the world. But it wasn't just a new museum. It was a statement. Tens of thousands of visitors lined up that opening week, eager to see this strange new creature of glass, steel, and grass. From above, it looked almost like part of the park had come alive and lifted itself up to breathe. Inside, the experience was unlike any museum before it. Visitors could walk through a living rainforest, then dive into the depths of the aquarium, then look up at the stars in the planetarium, all without ever leaving the same continuous space. It was a museum without walls, where science, architecture, and life merged into one fluid experience. Critics praised it for its lightness and coherence, for turning sustainability into something poetic rather than technical. The New York Times called it a museum that teaches without preaching. Of course, not everyone was entirely convinced. Some questioned the high cost of construction or the maintenance challenges of a roof that literally grows. The final cost of the building reached nearly $500 million, funded by a mix of visionary donors like Intel co-founder Gordon Moore and public bonds. But even the skeptics agreed that it marked a new chapter in how architecture could coexist with the planet. Renzo Piano himself described it best. He said the building was a living organism, one that would change with the seasons, evolve with the city, and remind visitors that humans are part of nature, not separated from it. More than 15 years later, the California Academy of Sciences feels as alive as ever. The roof has matured into a full ecosystem, home to birds, butterflies, and countless native plants that shift with the seasons. The building hums quietly, breathing through its skylights and vents, regulating itself like a living organism. It remains one of the few museums in the world where the architecture itself is part of the exhibit. Every pipe, every panel, every patch of soil is a lesson in how the built and natural worlds can coexist. For architects, it became a milestone. Proof that sustainability doesn't have to look mechanical or futuristic. It can look organic, warm, even human. And for San Francisco, it became a symbol of rebirth. A city that had lost its museum twice to earthquakes, only to rebuild it stronger, greener, and more resilient each time. Today, the California Academy of Sciences stands quietly in Golden Gate Park, blending almost invisibly into the landscape around it. You could walk by and almost miss it. And that's the point. It was never meant to dominate nature, but to disappear into it. And that, dear listener, is the California Academy of Science. Thank you for listening to Architecture Topics. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to follow the show, leave a review, or share it with a friend. You know the drill. It really helps new listeners find us. I'm Liam Karen, and I'll see you next time. Until then, keep looking up.